My next guest is Sherianna Boyle. Sherianna is an international emotional detox coach, author of 8 books, including her most recent Emotional Detox and Emotional Detox for Anxiety. She has a master's in education as well as a certificate of advanced graduate study in school psychology from the University of Massachusetts, Boston. Sherianna has been featured in over 85 articles and a featured presenter for renowned organizations such as PESI Behavioral and Mental Health Education, Kripalu Health and Yoga Center, 1440 University, Multi University, and more. Her book, The Four Gifts of Anxiety, was endorsed by the National Association of Mental Health. She is an adjunct psychology professor and founder of Emotional Detox Coaching, servicing clients of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities virtually worldwide. She is a co founder of cleanselife.com, which features her Cleanse Yoga virtual video collection, emotional detox courses, and corporate wellness. Sherianna is a featured expert on Simple Habit app and host of Emotional Detox radio show on healthylife.net. She's married to her hometown hubby, KB, raising 3 daughters, living her best cleanse life. Welcome to the podcast, Sherianna.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Well, there've been more than one time, Dana. However, the one I think would be most appropriate is I think a time when I worked in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a school psychologist, I would often find myself in the trenches and overwhelmed. And I really realized that when I got pregnant with my first daughter and I took a leave of absence. And I think teachers know how hard you work when you know you're going to have to leave
Mm-hmm.
and when you have a substitute.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was really over my head. I was pregnant, getting ready to have a baby, but at the same time, I was preparing someone else to take over my job. And I remember hiding in my office, literally. I remember going, "Oh God, please just don't let them know I'm here because
Mm-hmm.
I can't have one more thing on my plate." And I would see the principal and I would literally be like, "Okay, make sure I don't pass her today because if I pass her, she's going to tell me something I got to take care of." So I would say that was in the trenches for sure. And how I came out of that was really this journey that I've been on ever since. And that
Mm-hmm.
was years ago. That was back in 2000. My daughter was born. And when I left the schools, I didn't know I was leaving. I thought I was taking a leave of absence.
Mm-hmm.
But that would in turn into really collecting research and information on how to help people be more balanced and do those amazing jobs because they're so important. And it doesn't have to be that way, is what I've learned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, what kind of took you out of working as a psychologist and then starting this journey in through emotional detox and helping people worldwide?
Well, what took me out was when I left the position to have my daughter, I didn't realize I was suffering from anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I was so busy. Who had time to realize that I was anxious? I just thought I was really good at my job.
Mm-hmm.
People actually praised me for it because I would get things done on time or early because I couldn't stand the feeling of not having things
Mm-hmm.
done or being behind scared me more than anything. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we all feel that. What if I get behind in the curriculum? Or what if I don't get it all in? And so, or what if I'm not meeting everybody's needs?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was recognizing went on a journey of trying to help myself because I didn't feel well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways that I knew that is I went on an antidepressant and that really didn't work. So I went on another one. I went on
Mm-hmm.
5 antidepressants in 1 year.
Wow.
Now, in addition, I'm a new mom. So this doesn't feel very good when you're a new mom and you're popping antidepressants and you're just feeling horrible about
Mm-hmm.
yourself, right? Like I'm a school psychologist. I should be able to handle this, right? And what I didn't realize, it wasn't the baby, it was the fact that this had been going on a long time. And
Mm,
so what helped me out of it was, by the grace of God, those medications did not work. They
mhm,
made it worse. And so I had no choice but to find another way, because my liver results came back. They were starting to be affected.
mhm,
And I thought, I am way too young to be having these conversations with my doctor.
mhm,
So that's why I started saying, okay, I need to learn more mindful approaches
mhm,
to handling anxiety. And that's what led to the first book. And then someone asked me to write a book for families and children. That was the Everything Parents Guide to Childhood Anxiety. And I wrote that. And then someone said, hey, you know a lot about mindfulness. Could you make it so that that book is all mindful? And so then I wrote the Conscious Parenting Guide to Childhood Anxiety, which is all mindful approaches. So it just kind of landed in front of me. People knew I
mhm,
was interested. And back then, it wasn't a big thing like everyone's interested now. But when I was doing it, it was really the beginning of the curve starting to shift in a new direction. So I pulled myself out mindfully is really how I did it.
mhm. What do you think kind of led to that curve shifting? I mean, I got more involved in, meditation and just being more mindful. I would say probably
Mm.
around 2015, and I read the John
Yeah.
Kabat-Zinn's was it
Oh
mindfulness
yeah.
stress reduction program book, and and did several retreats. But when do you think that curve started taking more shape in both education and other fields?
Well, I think it's still taking shape. I mean, I think when teachers like yourself or administrators,
Mhm,
I think they've really been the ones to help. I mean, the people like myself have been out there maybe teaching, right? So
mhm,
I've been teaching it for a while, mindfulness and things like that. But I think it really comes from, well, first of all, the science is there.
mhm,
And that's probably why you chose that program, because they have the science to back up
mhm,
how it changes the brain, how it influences learning. Um, and I think we're still in the curve, to be honest with you, because now I'm a psychology professor, and I still find it there, but we still have a ways to go. We're still not doing everything that we could be doing, and but I think it's teachers who are willing to take material like this information on your show
mhm.
and actually apply it. And I think that's where you're going to really see this curve get a little bit stronger.
Mhm. Yeah, and an example,
Yeah.
something that I subscribe to, one of those Google groups in my district, is just a resource group for educators where almost daily they're sending out mindfulness videos and tips and tricks you can use with students. So, hopefully,
Mm,
other districts of listeners have things like that going on, or can start maybe a Google group where people just send out things that can be used with students
sure.
and educators alike. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your book, Emotional Detox, and talk a little bit about how you think that would help educators who have already been dealing with toxic stress and anxiety prior to the pandemic. And for them,
Mm.
probably, the uncertainty with the pandemic has increased that anxiety. So,
Mm.
what would you advise them, and how will this book help them?
Well, emotional detox, there's two of them that are out there right now. There's the core book, which really lays the foundation for what exactly is an emotional detox. So that
Hmm.
one has the white cover. And then I wrote emotional detox specifically for anxiety. So it's called
Hmm.
Emotional Detox for Anxiety. And they're different books. They're the same approach, but they're different. They're very different. And so how it can help people. Well, I mean, I studied mindfulness for years, for years. I actually owned a yoga studio at some point. I had many workshops, classes, retreats. I did it all,
Hmm.
and many people working for me. And so I was exposed to all this stuff. What r- really helped me was when I wrote this book.
Hmm.
And the reason is I find you can have a collection of tools, but we have to remember that our emotions we're not trying to get rid of them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for years I actually thought that, right? So I would take mindful tools and I would use them to kind of make myself better or
Mm-hmm.
get rid of
Mm-hmm.
something that I didn't want in my life anymore. And it really wasn't until I started researching emotions, what they are, how they work in the body, how they serve us, that I realized that's not what we're doing at all. So
Mm-hmm.
emotional detox, the foundation of it is based on this. All emotions are good so long as you process them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no bad emotion in the emotional detox perspective
Mm-hmm.
so long as you process them. And so I think I describe it in the book like food.
Mm-hmm.
If you're eating food that is layered with pesticides or chemicals,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be as good for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's the same thing with emotions. If they're layered with toxicity, meaning reactions,
Mm-hmm.
thinking patterns, belief systems, anything like that, they're not going to be as good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, emotions, when they're in their purest form, are incredibly nourishing to your mind and to your body and to your students.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when it comes to emotional detox, we're not getting rid of the emotions, we're getting rid of the reactions. And so, in many ways, we're doing a lot of unlearning
Mm-hmm.
because many of us learned, and I remember teaching as a school psychologist and about emotions, how they look in someone, we label them,
Mm-hmm.
but then we stop there.
Yeah.
This is what an emotion looks like. This is what the label is, but we don't really take them through an emotion to show them how to process it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what emotional detox does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and before we started recording, we did a little bit of emotional detox on me and
Yes.
just cross-test a little bit of anxiety I have about headaches. And, I think just kind of identifying, like you said, I was kind of on the fence, right? And you told me to
Yes.
ground my feet
Mhm.
in a place, where I felt peace.
Mhm.
And I think just when you, say, I think that was something that really spoke out to me was just like, if your emotions are kind of on the fence that you think, or you're worried about something, like, because you came out with that, I'm using that phrase, I think, a lot, right? Because
Mhm.
it's that uncertainty of if something worse is going to happen, right? So yeah. So describe just that grounding that
Yeah.
that you help clients do with their emotions, because I think it's interesting how you said we can't get rid of those emotions, but if we ground ourselves and in that stable place,
Yeah.
then we're able to deal with them better.
Yeah. So in emotional detox, there's a 7-step
Mm-hmm.
process
Mm-hmm.
and it's in the acronym of cleanse.
Mm-hmm.
So you start with the C and you end with the E and they build on each other. So what Dana's referring to is that I just took her through the 7 steps
Mm-hmm.
before we started recording. And she wanted to focus on her headaches, right? That what's contributing to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I find is that my job as an emotional detox coach is to help people become aware of how they're suppressing their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways that I discovered with her, the way she was suppressing, is the language she uses. For one, she
Mm-hmm.
keeps herself sort of one foot in one area, one foot in another area. And a lot of people do that. It's like I'm moving forward, but I'm not moving forward
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? And they keep themselves in this stuck place. And then you have to deal with that. You have to manage that. And I think some of what the way she manages it is there's a lot of tension that
Mm-hmm.
builds up in her body as a way to handle that. And I particularly felt with Dana, which I think is happening even to our children, is that tension gets in her shoulders and neck.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get tension in your shoulders? Do you find your shoulders go up?
Yeah, and I just had a massage the other day. It had been a while, but after I can really tell, like, when I really need that massage, because my
Yeah.
shoulders just feel so tense and knotted. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that, of course, will knot up the neck, right?
Mhm.
And then that can kink everything up, and then you can get headaches. Headaches are also a sign of pressure,
Mhm.
just feeling pressure and then storing pressure. So those are some things that she became aware of in just a few minutes. By the way, the cleanse only takes about 7 minutes. I mean, I think ours was about 7 minutes
Mhm.
once you get to know the steps. And then really helping guide people, okay, this is how I'm suppressing,
Mhm.
this is what I'm releasing, so that I can now start to do what she was describing. I can
Mhm.
start to have the experience of what it's like to be grounded. But you can't do that by circumventing
Mhm.
the processing, right?
Mhm.
You can sort of imagine it and it might temporarily work. But if you really want to feel rooted, because I mean, you felt pretty grounded after, and I
Mhm.
still feel like you're holding the energy, and that's probably all your work that you've done till now. She's able to hold it, because I can usually pick up on people that are losing energy at a rapid rate.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that just means, when I say losing energy, it means they're just starting to shut things down again.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
shut down our emotions all the time,
Mhm.
right? We shut them down, like just like we shut the door. And when we do that, we really, we then the wear and
Okay.
So it puts a lot of wear and tear on your mind and your body. So some of these systems are running consciously and some of them are running unconsciously. And so as a coach, if I'm working one on one with someone, I'm usually helping them really make connections, not just from what they're suppressing now, but also how it's connected to their past. Because
Mhm.
a lot of these systems are learned, and or they're a result of unresolved experiences when we were growing up. And a lot of this comes from my research on trauma. So when I was researching emotions, I did a lot of looking into emotional trauma and what happens with that. So that's how the system got designed.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to see, like, now that we've had so much more of trauma informed practices in school, and educators have become much more aware of how
Mm,
students react. A lot of that goes back to the trauma that they endured,
yeah.
but also just with adults, right? That we're carrying either these traumas from the past, or we're carrying these mindsets. I think a lot of the time, just maybe this negative self talk, or this, like you said, kind of on the fence thinking, or
Yeah.
this I'm not good enough thinking, or a
Yeah.
lot of various types of things that adults are just dealing with, and that kind of builds up, and makes us have that toxic anxiety, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does build up, and I think it's we're at a point now where we can't hide it anymore,
Hmm.
right? I mean, COVID, if anything, has brought out a lot in people that were
Hmm.
able to just kind of get by and keep their work and their personal life very
Hmm.
separate and
Hmm.
neat and tidy. I'm okay. I'm strong at work, but really I'm falling apart here, right?
Hmm.
Or vice versa. I think what COVID has done, it's really brought to light people that weren't taking care of themselves
Hmm.
or not addressing certain things really can't hide anymore. And I know that's scary for some people, but that's some of what's happening. Is we're going to learn, we can take advantage of this
Hmm.
and really start to, we already were starting to learn new things, but now that we have an opportunity not to be in the building,
Yeah.
right? Some of us are not in the buildings, or at least not full time. What the advantage of that is, you're not in the throes of a trigger,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So it's kind of nice. And you'll notice that some children are doing well right now. You've got
Hmm.
some children that are not doing well, that don't have enough support
Hmm.
and are not, this is not okay for their learning. Um, and then you have some children that are feeling better. And it's because some of the whatever was triggering them has been removed,
Yeah.
right? So if they were anxious, they now don't have a lot of that in front of them. So we could take advantage of that, and we clear out a lot of these outside influences, kind of get centered a little bit and grounded, like you said, before we go back in. And I'm imagining my daughter was, I have three daughters, and my youngest one was asking me the other day. She said, Mom, I don't think we're going to go back full time in January. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I reminded her, and I think this is important for all of us. I said, I really don't think it's going to be in one full swoop.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is they're going to do it gradual. They're going to
Yeah.
gradually, and that's a good thing. And that's something, if it isn't on people's minds, we have to be, again, like you said, we're trauma sensitive now.
Yeah.
You're not going to just be like, okay, light switch, we're back in, guys, let's
Mm-hmm.
go, get it back going. You know, because for teachers and for kids, that's going to be too much
Mm-hmm.
when we've
Mm-hmm.
been extracted for so long. We're going to have to tread lightly and be really
Mm-hmm.
kind and gentle and compassionate along the way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of students have learned kind of a lot more about kindness throughout the pandemic, and reaching out to others, and just the need for helping others, volunteerism, and those type of things. I
Yeah.
wanted to also talk a little bit about your podcast. You have an
Mm.
emotional detox podcast, so. Let me know kind of how many episodes you're in, and how often you release new episodes, and where
Yeah.
people can find your podcast.
Yeah, the podcast is great. So I have two.
Mhm.
One is I have Emotional Detox Radio. I'm on the radio once a week. And that's through a platform called healthylife.net.
Mhm.
And healthylife.net is incredible. They're a platform that's all about positive talk, which is great. And that we're inundated, talk about toxicity. Just watch
Mhm.
the news, right?
Mhm.
Um, you're not going to find that on healthylife.net. It's all about positive. You're also going to find alternative viewpoints there that sometimes the mainstream doesn't want you to know about.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, there's other shows on there besides mine. But so that's Emotional Detox, runs once a week, and
Mhm.
it's available as a podcast. So you can go to healthylife.net, but I would go through my website. So if you go to my
Okay.
website, which is sheriannaboyle.com, and you hit podcasts tab, you're going to see I have a podcast, and you're going to see the shows right there. And I
Mhm.
think there's about maybe 25 shows there.
Okay.
And that's just me recording. And then you're going to see a link to healthylife.net. Now, the podcast that I record on my own, which is also called Emotional Detox, is being uh, reinvented for January. And
Mhm.
I will be
Mhm.
doing that with um, my friend and business partner, Sarah Nitch. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing pre and post cleanses.
Okay.
So we're going to be having pre-post conversations about emotional detoxes. It's going to be great. So either one of those, you're going to get a lot of information, but I would just go through the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is something that would be beneficial for educators, kind of as we wrap up the 2020 year, and
Yeah.
start a new calendar year in 2021, and kind of
Yeah.
looking at reinventing, starting those New Year's resolutions, which kind of falls at the time you're also starting a new class
Yeah.
on January 10th called Manifesting. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I wrote Emotional Detox and then Emotional Detox for Anxiety, I wrote it because that
Hmm.
I'm aware of the laws of the universe. Okay. So I made sure when I developed I call it the cleanse method, every single step aligned with the law of the universe.
Hmm.
I also made sure that because I wrote a book before that called Mantras Made Easy. So I understand the power of a word and the vibration of a word. So I made sure that every single step lined up with vibration.
Hmm.
So what I didn't know was going to happen, I'm thinking, okay, I'm coming up with a system for releasing reactivity so people can process their
Hmm.
emotions. and it works extremely well. But what I didn't know is I was also creating a method for manifesting. So I take those same 7 steps and I teach people how to manifest. And
Mhm.
that's what we're going to be doing in January. So it's going to be 8 classes. It's only going to be 1 hour once a week. We are going to do one emotional cleanse. We
Mhm.
are going to do one manifesting cleanse. And I'm going to teach you things that I never learned about manifesting that I now know
Mhm.
from processing my emotions. Because when you process your emotions, you gain wisdom, you gain insight that you don't normally get from the day to day. And you're really not going to get it from the academic. No one's going to teach it to you in that way. It
Mhm.
comes from within. So I'm going to share with you some common ways that people sort of interrupt manifesting and how to enhance it. And that will be starting January 10th. And again, you just go to my website, sheriannaboyle.com, and you're going to go under classes and you're going to see it right there.
Mhm. Mhm. And you talked a little bit about in the pre-chat how the it's also taking that mindset, right?
Mm.
It's laying out exactly how you're going to live with kind of detoxing your emotions and having clarity about what you're anxious about.
Yes.
So kind of tell me how you know is shifting that mindset, is that something that is gradual, usually takes place over time, or if somebody attends one of these classes, are they able to kind of take on that new mindset in that 8-week period? What is your experience with
Oh
clients?
yeah, yes, they do. I mean, it's extremely powerful when you cleanse in a group
Mm-hmm.
and of people, and it's powerful even just to do it with one other person
Mm-hmm.
like myself. I've had people that have jumped on board without any prior knowledge or not
Mm-hmm.
reading the book, and they catch on pretty quickly. And they all of a sudden they're realizing that they're pretty intuitive, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of fun to see because when you're not blocking your emotions or avoiding them, what happens is you're able to get the inner guidance
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to start to follow your heart and trust what you feel. And that's a confidence builder, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're not comparing yourself to other people or worrying what people think anymore, or trying to make sure you don't get in trouble or whatever it is, that's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's also very nice to be with a group of people that is really to support one another and is really
Mm-hmm.
you find a camaraderie that's different than the regular world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's non-competitive. um, I think people aren't we don't have a lot of that, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
people that really just want the best for us, and so and that want you to shine. And that's the kind of feel you get when you show up to a group like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, tell me a little bit about what you have coming up next. You talked a little bit about another book to be
Mm.
released in the fall, and also,
Yeah.
there's also something in the works for maybe in the summer. And we were talking in the pre-chat a little bit about getting back and having you on the podcast in
Yes.
kind of the back to school. So
Yes.
so let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about kind of what you
I
have in
know.
the
Can you
future.
believe we're talking about next fall? I know
Yeah.
it's not even Christmas yet, but that's okay. Well, it's good for people to know because then if once we're connected, so next fall, I wish it were earlier, but
Mhm.
coronavirus really slowed the publishing world down. And so I have a book coming out called it's also Emotional Detox, but this one has 135 self-guided practices.
Mhm.
And what I did was I wrote out 135 cleanses for every single area in your life you could ever imagine. But, love, health, finances, if you had a day where somebody yelled at you at work or whatever is
Mhm.
going on, I'm sure there's going to be a cleanse there that you can do. And it's really exciting. After I wrote the book, I was cleansing, of course, along with it.
Mm-hmm.
My life changed big time. And I know it was from writing that book. Things that I didn't realize weren't good for me left.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite interesting because you can't always see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so new doors and opportunities opened. And I know it was from that book.
Mm-hmm.
And so my life before the book and now is incredibly different, because I released so much and opened up. So that will, maybe we were talking about next summer, that will be, getting ready to take that back to school. So just know you're going to have tools, and even more tools and resources to take with you for, when you're getting ready for 221. So
Mm-hmm.
just kind of do your best to take care of yourself right now, and be kind to yourself. And through this process, we're all sort of in this transition. It's
Mm-hmm.
just happens to be kind of a long one,
Yeah.
right? But it does serve a purpose, because it's kind of like it's like processing. It's like we're in baking mode. We don't know what the outcome's going to be, but we
Mm-hmm.
know it's going to be better than we think. I really
Mm-hmm.
believe that. And I think people kind of know that inside. It's going to be better than you think, because there's no way in heck, we can go back even if we wanted to. People are
Mm-hmm.
just more mindful about their health, about
Yeah.
whether they have a cough, how close they stand next to
Yeah.
someone,
Yeah.
whether they wash their hands. I mean, we're never going to go back to not becoming aware of some of those things, which is kind of a good thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think people will also, or even now, they're just taking on a new appreciation for those simple things in life. And,
Yeah.
just going through a hard time, I think changes people, whether it's, a time when you were younger in life or, just a learning experience. And this has kind of been a global learning experience. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody's reacted differently, but I think just, when we have some of those basic things that we expect, like, indoor dining taken away, or, the possibility to go in person school taken away. I think, having that appreciation when things go
Yeah.
back to whatever the new normal is,
That's right. Yeah.
that hopefully people, the world will be a better place, right? That, I think there'll
Yeah.
be more, understanding of kind of
Yeah.
the trials that others are going through. Just yesterday I saw how a lot of just worldwide different celebrity chefs and people like that are just funding a lot of these campaigns to feed the hungry in India and
Yes.
Africa.
Yeah.
So much more, giving a lot of will you say a lot more attention than maybe
Yeah.
otherwise we would have had, just because we know that the rate of people that are hungry has gone up with COVID. So
Yeah.
I hope that people don't go back to just living their lives and thinking that they have it all, but
Yeah.
and just kind of think about how it is for everybody else. I mean, we're lucky in the US that we'll be some of the first to get the vaccine, but I mean there's going to be a lot of countries out there where it's going to be a good year or so after the vaccine comes out. And I think if we can contribute in some way to the places that are less fortunate, whether it is donations or when we can travel to go and volunteer in those places.
Yeah.
um, so out of everything we discussed today on the podcast, what's one thing in particular you'd like listeners to remember?
Well, like I always say on the radio show, I end my show with this line, and it's your emotions matter, processing them matters
Mhm.
more. And I'd like people to know that your emotions are a resource. So
Mhm.
even if you're feeling like you could use more money and this and that, well, your
Mhm.
emotions are a resource for all of that,
Mhm.
for change, for connection, for peace. And so I'm hoping that people start to consider turning to their emotions more often as a
Mhm.
source of comfort and support, because they really are when they're processed. When they're left unprocessed, then they can be a real pain in the butt, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But take time to process, and that takes time to get to know. Then more and more, you're going to realize that they're really designed to help you. And when they can help you, that really helps everybody else because people feel that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great words to end with. And where can people find you online and connect with you?
Well, again, sheriannaboyle.com is my primary website, which is where my books are, my coaching, my classes, all of that. And then cleanselife.com is where I put yoga videos because I've been teaching yoga for about 19 years.
Hmm.
And I put the cleanse, I do emotional detox in every class. So people get to be guided through while they're doing yoga. And I actually include fitness because I'm a big fan of fitness, meaning move your body. For anxiety, we have to move. And so that's all on cleanselife.com.
Great, great. I'll put those in the show notes. Well, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for being on the Out of the Trenches podcast. It was great to find more about emotional detox and, great talking to you and seeing how you can help other educators.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing this out to the world.